They took out the most dangerous mind in WWE history, and now, the fallout is worse than anyone imagined. Let me say this slowly so it sinks in. Paul Heyman, the man who has survived Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and decades of ruthless WWE politics, is currently lying at home, broken, battered, and written off television indefinitely. Not for a week. Not for 2 weeks. Indefinitely. And Triple H's own people just confirmed the injuries, and they are absolutely horrifying. Cervical spinal contusion. Facial lacerations. A deviated septum. That is not a storyline injury, people. That is a human being who got absolutely destroyed on live television, and WWE is now telling the entire world that nobody knows when or even if Paul Heyman will be back before WrestleMania 42. Think about that for 1 second. WrestleMania is right around the corner, the grandest stage of them all is weeks away, and the Wiseman, the Oracle, the man who has been the beating brain behind everything happening on Monday Night Raw, is gone. And right now, I want you to drop a comment below. Do you think Seth Rollins went too far? Because what happened on March 2nd on Raw was not just a wrestling angle. It was the kind of moment that changes everything. Hit that like button right now if you've been waiting for someone to tell you the full truth about what is really going on with Paul Heyman, because we are going all the way in on this one. Let's go. Chapter 1: The Night Everything Collapsed. To truly understand the gravity of what happened to Paul Heyman, you have to understand what Paul Heyman had become in WWE heading into 2026. This was not the Paul Heyman of the ECW days, just some edgy promoter screaming into a microphone. This was not even the Paul Heyman who made Brock Lesnar into a god or turned Roman Reigns into the tribal chief. By early 2026, Paul Heyman had reinvented himself one more time. He had become the Oracle of the Vision, the master puppeteer behind one of the most dominant factions Monday Night Raw had seen in years. The Vision, originally built around Seth Rollins and the sheer genius of Heyman's strategic mind, had evolved into a machine. Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, Austin Theory. Multiple powerhouses under one roof, all guided by the most manipulative, calculating man in sports entertainment history. Heyman wasn't just a manager. He was the soul of that faction. But then the cracks started showing. Seth Rollins, the very man Heyman had stood beside when the Vision was born, was betrayed. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed turned on Rollins, kicked him out of the group he helped create, and took over. Rollins suffered a shoulder injury and disappeared from television. And for months, everyone thought Rollins was just nursing his wounds quietly. He was not. He was watching. He was waiting. And at the 2026 Elimination Chamber, Seth Rollins returned from the shadows wearing a mask, the same kind of disguise that had been taunting the Vision for weeks. The moment Rollins' face was revealed beneath that mask, the entire arena erupted. And in that instant, the Vision's world shattered. Rollins cost Logan Paul his chance at winning the Elimination Chamber, delivering a vicious curb stomp and standing tall while Paul was pinned. But Rollins wasn't finished. Not even close. Chapter 2: March 2nd, the night Paul Heyman bled. March 2nd, 2026. Monday Night Raw. The post-elimination chamber edition of the show. You know when a show opens and you can just feel something devastating is about to happen? That was this night. Paul Heyman came out with the Vision, Logan Paul and Austin Theory, and they were furious. They wanted answers. They wanted Seth Rollins. They demanded he show himself and face the consequences for what he did at Elimination Chamber. And then the masked men started coming out. One by one, from every direction. 5 of them, swarming the ring. But they weren't there to attack Heyman, they were there as distractions. They pulled Logan Paul away. They pulled Austin Theory out of the picture. They stripped Heyman of every single layer of protection he had, and they left him alone, one old man in a suit standing in the center of the ring with nowhere to run. And then, from behind, the music stopped. Seth Rollins appeared. And what happened next is not something you could have scripted in a nightmare. Rollins grabbed a steel chair and he cracked it across the back of Paul Heyman. One shot. And Paul Heyman crumpled. But Rollins wasn't done. In one of the most chilling moments in recent Raw history, Rollins positioned Heyman on the mat, stood over him, and delivered a curb stomp, the most devastating finishing move in WWE, directly to the skull of an unarmed, defenseless 56-year-old man. Paul Heyman was busted open. Blood everywhere. Paramedics rushed to the ring. The WWE Universe sat in stunned silence. They loaded Paul Heyman into an ambulance. And then somehow the night got even more chaotic. Because as that ambulance pulled away, it wasn't being driven to any hospital. LA Knight had taken over the driver's seat. The megastar had kidnapped Paul Heyman. The Oracle was bloodied, beaten, helpless, and now in the hands of someone who had every reason to make his night even worse. This was not pro wrestling drama. This was a human being put through something absolutely brutal on live television. Chapter 3: Triple H's office breaks the silence and the news is bad. Here is where things moved from shocking to genuinely devastating. 1 week after the attack, on the March 9th edition of Monday Night Raw, Michael Cole, speaking on behalf of WWE's official position, confirmed Paul Heyman's medical status. And when those words came out of his mouth, the entire WWE universe felt it. Cervical spinal contusion. That means trauma to the spinal cord in the neck region. You understand what that is? That is not a bruised back. That is not a sore shoulder. A cervical spinal contusion is the kind of injury that raises immediate and serious questions about a person's long-term health, their mobility, their quality of life. That is the kind of injury that surgeons take extremely seriously. On top of that, facial lacerations from the chair shot and the curb stomp, and a deviated septum, meaning the internal structure of Heyman's nose was damaged significantly enough to require medical documentation. And the official update? Paul Heyman is out of action indefinitely. No return date. No timeline. No indication that he will even be present for WrestleMania 42 in April. Triple H's creative team, through official WWE channels, made it clear the Wiseman is not just on the shelf. He is seriously hurt, and nobody knows when he is coming back. Let me put this in context for you, because this is not the first time Paul Heyman has been put through the ringer on television. 2 years before this, the Bloodline's Jacob Fatu faction turned on Heyman and sent him crashing violently through an announcer's table. He disappeared for months after that, only resurfacing to announce CM Punk at Survivor Series, War Games. So Heyman's body has been through trauma before. But this feels different. This feels more serious. And the injury report confirms it. What makes this even more gut-wrenching is the timing. WrestleMania 42 is in Las Vegas in April 2026. This is the biggest WWE event of the year. And right now, the man who was supposed to be one of its central figures, the mastermind of the Vision, the man managing Braun Breaker and Brock Lesnar, the man at the center of Seth Rollins' revenge arc, is sitting at home with a spinal injury, broken and absent. Chapter 4, The Vision is in ruins, and it's Heyman's absence that hurts most. Now let's talk about the collateral damage, because Paul Heyman's injury does not exist in a vacuum. It has sent shockwaves through everything on Monday Night Raw. Cast your mind back to the beginning of 2026. The Vision was supposed to be unstoppable heading into WrestleMania. Braun Breaker was the centerpiece, a physical freak, a generational talent, a man Triple H and WWE had clearly invested enormous faith in. Heyman was going to guide Breaker to the main event of WrestleMania and cement himself as the greatest manager of all time again. That was the plan. Then the Royal Rumble happened. A masked figure delivered a familiar curb stomp to Breaker before he even entered the Rumble match, ruining everything. Breaker, in a fit of rage afterward, destroyed the ringside area on Raw and, in doing so, aggravated a hernia so badly that he needed emergency surgery. The Wiseman himself went on Busted Open Radio and described it as a hernia that Breaker had aggravated beyond description, one that required surgeons to operate immediately. Braun Breaker done. WrestleMania plans in serious jeopardy. Then Bronson Reed, another Vision powerhouse, suffered a torn biceps in an Elimination Chamber qualifier match. The Ozilla, one of the most physically imposing men on the entire Raw roster, is gone, almost certainly missing WrestleMania. Think about what that means. Within weeks of each other, the Vision lost Rollins to betrayal, Reed to a torn bicep, Breaker to emergency hernia surgery, and now Heyman, the brain, the architect, the irreplaceable Oracle, is lying at home with a cervical spinal contusion. The faction that was supposed to dominate the road to WrestleMania is now just Logan Paul and Austin Theory, wandering around Raw without their general, without their muscle, without their mind. And here is what nobody is saying loudly enough: without Paul Heyman, Logan Paul is a different performer. Without Heyman's guidance, his promo work changes. The psychological edge that Heyman gave to every segment, every confrontation, every contract signing that is gone right now. And you can feel it. The Vision feels hollow. It feels like a ship without a captain. Chapter 5, What this means for Seth Rollins and why the heat is real. Let's talk about Seth Rollins for a moment, because some people out there are cheering what he did, and that needs to be addressed. Yes, Paul Heyman turned on Rollins. Yes, Heyman aligned himself with Braun Breaker after Breaker betrayed Seth and kicked him out of the Vision. From a kayfabe standpoint, Heyman earned every bit of Rollins' fury. Seth did not forget. Seth did not forgive. And Seth came back with violence. But here's the thing: Rollins knew exactly what he was doing. He did not go after Breaker in this moment. He did not go after Logan Paul or Austin Theory. He went after a 56-year-old manager who doesn't wrestle. He stripped Heyman of his protection using 5 masked decoys, left him defenseless, and then unleashed a steel chair and a curb stomp on a man who could not fight back. That is calculated. That is cold. That is a level of ruthlessness that even some Rollins fans are uncomfortable with. And now the man is at home with a spinal injury. The question the WWE Universe needs to be asking, and I want you to answer this in the comments right now: is Seth Rollins a hero for getting his revenge? Or did he cross a line that cannot be uncrossed? Because from where I'm sitting, this is not a black and white situation. Heyman burned Rollins. But what Rollins did in return was not just revenge. It was a statement. It was rage. And Paul Heyman's body is paying the price for it. Chapter 6, The Paul Heyman We've Lost and Why It Matters Beyond WWE. Here is what I need every single person watching this video to understand. Paul Heyman is not just a character. He is not just a mouthpiece or a prop. Paul Heyman is one of the most gifted minds in the entire history of professional wrestling. Period. Full stop. You do not get to debate that. The man ran ECW in the 1990s with no money and turned it into the most culturally significant wrestling promotion of its era. He elevated Brock Lesnar from a terrifying physical specimen into a supernatural force that made WWE genuinely must-see television. He made Roman Reigns into the most dominant world champion in the last 2 decades. Every person he has ever stood next to has been elevated beyond what they could have achieved alone. And now that mind, that voice, that fire, that creative brilliance that he brings to every single promo, every single segment is absent from your television screen. And when he is on television, he has reportedly been breaking character in small ways, stepping outside the Oracle persona, showing glimpses of the real Paul Heyman, a man who has been through something genuinely traumatic. When a man like Paul Heyman breaks character, even in small moments on social media, responding to fan posts as himself rather than the Oracle, praising legends like Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle with genuine warmth, you know that what he went through has affected him deeply. The Wiseman is not entirely himself right now. And for those of us who have followed his career for decades, that is genuinely painful to see. This is a man who called Braun Breaker every single day during his injury recovery. A man who said nobody checks in after day one, but he does every day, without fail. This is a man of loyalty, of genuine care for the people he works alongside. And now he is the one who needs that check-in. He is the one sitting at home, wondering if his body will recover in time. Chapter 7, WrestleMania 42, What Happens Without the Wiseman? WrestleMania 42 is set for Las Vegas on April 18th and 19th, 2026. And right now, Paul Heyman's status for that event is completely unknown. Here's what we do know. Triple H is reportedly hoping Braun Breaker can return in time to face Seth Rollins, a match that has enormous emotional weight given everything we've described. But WWE's own internal reports suggest they are prepared to go to Logan Paul vs. Rollins if Breaker cannot be cleared in time. And in all of those plans, the presence or absence of Paul Heyman changes everything. If Heyman is not at WrestleMania, the revenge story feels incomplete. Rollins' war with the Vision has always been personal, and the most personal element of it, the man Rollins feels truly betrayed him, is Heyman, not Breaker. Heyman was the one who chose a side. Heyman was the one who stood by while Rollins was cast aside. And if Heyman cannot stand on that WrestleMania stage to face the consequences of his choices, then Rollins' revenge arc loses its most satisfying chapter. Meanwhile, Heyman had reportedly been bringing Brock Lesnar back into the fold as a contingency plan for the Vision. Lesnar issued an open challenge for WrestleMania and it was confirmed. Oba Femi has answered that challenge. But the presence of Brock Lesnar in this story was always intertwined with Heyman's management. Those two are inseparable. Brock without Heyman is a different animal. Less terrifying, less calculated. Just raw power without the brains behind it. The entire fabric of the WrestleMania 42 storylines on the Raw side of the card are affected by whether or not Paul Heyman can physically recover in time. And right now, 1 month out from the show of shows, nobody has given a concrete answer. Chapter 8, the real question nobody is asking. I want to leave you with one final thought, because this is the question that's been eating at me since the news broke about Heyman's injuries. We talk about Paul Heyman as a performer. We talk about his character, his accolades, his genius. But Paul Heyman is 56 years old. He has been in professional wrestling since his early 20s. He has absorbed years of stress, physical bumps that managers are not supposed to take, betrayals, firings, creative collapses, and personal battles. He came back to WWE and gave everything he had again. He helped make Roman Reigns into a legend. He tried to do it again with the Vision. And on March 2, 2026, a steel chair and a curb stomp left him with a cervical spinal contusion. At what point do we stop treating Paul Heyman purely as a piece of this ongoing story and start recognizing that there is a real man inside that suit who has been genuinely hurt? At what point do we, as wrestling fans, hold space for the possibility that this injury, this real, documented, medically confirmed injury, might be the kind that changes things permanently? I am not saying Paul Heyman's career is over. I am saying that a man who has given his life to this business, a man who is irreplaceable, a man who is not himself right now in the aftermath of what was done to him, that man deserves more than just speculation about when he'll return to boost somebody else's storyline. He deserves to heal. He deserves to come back only when his body is truly ready. And when he does, and I believe he will, the entire WWE universe should be on their feet. Final word. So let me bring this home, because if you've watched this far, you know exactly what's at stake. Paul Heyman is out indefinitely with a cervical spinal contusion, facial lacerations, and a deviated septum, injuries confirmed through WWE's official channels after Seth Rollins' vicious, calculated attack on March 2nd. The Vision is in ruins. Braun Breaker is recovering from emergency hernia surgery. Bronson Reed has a torn bicep. And WrestleMania 42 is bearing down on us in Las Vegas with the most important manager on Monday Night Raw sitting at home, broken. This is not a storyline moment. This is the real cost of the game that these men and women play for our entertainment. And right now, the cost was paid by Paul Heyman. I want to hear from you. Leave a comment right now. Do you think Paul Heyman will be back for WrestleMania 42? Do you think Seth Rollins went too far? And most importantly, how much does WWE change without the Oracle? If this video gave you the full picture that nobody else is talking about, share this with every wrestling fan you know. They deserve to know the truth about what happened to Paul Heyman. Hit subscribe on Ring Rumble 1 because we do not sugarcoat anything here. We give you the real story every single time. The Wiseman is down, but he is not out.